I think the different kinds of questions that I raise about how litigation does or does not matter have led me to engage in a different kind of research approach than what Rosenberg uses. It's interesting, the book that I wrote on pay equity, the first paper that I wrote was a very Rosenbergian analysis. I said, why are these people filing lawsuits? Because the courts will never go along with this. And I said, even if they do, it's not going to matter. That was the very first paper I wrote, which is 10 years before Rosenberg published his book. But I abandoned that because at my own university, I ran into somebody who was a leader in the national pay equity movement. And I said, why are you filing lawsuits? That's a waste of time. And she gave me about a 2-hour explanation why litigation was so important to what they were doing, problematic piece of it. And so from that, I began to do more interviews. And she said, you know, she had the archives for many of the struggles over pay equity around the country. So I engaged in a summer-long study of archives for all of these movements, all these local manifestations of the pay equity movement around the country. And from that, I developed a case study approach where I specified 6 case studies that I was going to travel to. I applied for a National Science Foundation grant to support it. And I combined a big end study about all of the cases around the country, or about 50 cases, and then I chose 6 of those to focus on. And I used traditional qualitative methods of archival research, extensive interviews. I interviewed several hundred participants in this, in this politics, and largely told narratives of these stories and from the points of views of the activists themselves. And so as opposed to a big end study from the top down, I engaged in a more bottom-up study, which brought me into contact with the activists themselves. And that's where I first realized that, well, from the outside, litigation may look like a waste of time or an unproductive strategy, but from the inside, it looked very, very different. And much of my work has been trying to understand the world from in which actors act and why they do what they do. And it's not to accept that, but is to engage critically with their own understanding from what we know from social science, to kind of put it to the test of social science.